Hey everybody, welcome to another classroom video. Today we're going to talk about why ball rating systems or spreadsheets or formulas aren't something you should fully trust or trust at all when making purchasing decisions, mine included. Hey, guess what? I'm advertising some stuff. Follow the link in the description or at the end of the video, not the ads during the video, for any of your bowling needs at Bowler's Mart. Supporting them supports me, and don't forget my code Rosdahl10 the next time you go to order anything at CoolWick to get 10% off. They're the ones that keep stuff like this coming. Required watching for this video is my last one, classroom number 5, about lane surfaces. I've had a couple different rating systems, and inevitably both of them have unraveled because ball reactions simply can't be quantified. With my current system, I try to focus less on the actual rating I give the ball and more on how that rating relates to the other balls, because that's really all you can get out of a review video. You may not get the same reaction out of a ball that Angel or I get, but the balls should relate to each other like they relate for us, or at least you should be able to develop some kind of consistency or relationship between the reaction that I get and what I say to the reaction you get. However, the more balls I rate, the more I'm like, okay, this ball gets this rating, which means this ball should get this rating, but then that gives it the same rating as this other ball, which doesn't jive. And referencing classroom number 5, are we talking like Westridge ratings or gauge ratings? If we're talking Westridge, the phase 3 gets a 6 or 7 on back end strength. If we're talking gauge, it's an easy 10 and I'm looking at breaking the scale. However, the idle gets a 4 at Westridge and probably a 7 at gauge, so it's all relative but not terribly accurate. I have a lot of extra footage I've banked over the last couple years for videos that never happened for one reason or another, and fortunately I have some pretty good stuff. I'm going to show a couple different angles here with the Halo Pearl versus the Halo Burn, with the same layout, same core, both pearl cover types, same surface, which is the factory shine, same center, we're on the house shot. Literally the only thing that's different between these two is the cover formula. The Halo Pearl has the medium strength R2S-ish E-Trax P18 formula, and the Halo Burn, which is overseas, has the much stronger Microtrax P18 formula. All the other classroom videos so far have led in this direction. We've talked about all the components that make up the ball and quite a few of the factors that either create or contribute to ball reaction. If you consider just core numbers in a system, it's not accurate. If you consider just cover types, it's not accurate. And there's really no way to quantify cover formula strengths besides saying, well, this one's stronger than this one, but you can't really measure exactly how much stronger it is, and strength is kind of a generic term that can mean different things and give you different results in different situations, so you're left with an imperfect system no matter what. Now, there are a few exceptions you can make, but when dealing with ball reaction, you can't really consider anything an outlier because it's all relevant, it's all important, and there are really different things that happen in different situations. What we're seeing here is that with all other things being equal, there's not much difference. This pattern's about 40 feet, 21 mils, so typical house shot, and any kind of analysis would be splitting hairs. The burn is maybe a smidge earlier and smoother, but again, trying to break this down would be pointless. They're very similar reactions. However, remember the classroom video I made about formulas, so let's flip the script. Now we're on the 2019 Open Championships doubles and singles pattern at 42 feet and 28 mils, couple extra feet and a ton higher volume. All of a sudden the Halo Pearl starts wiggling. If I keep it tight or the angle closed, it looks fine. I mean, anything will hook in the middle on a sport shot, but any kind of room or angle and it starts getting long and slow / late. Now, covering boards on a house shot isn't hook, and if you rank your equipment that way, you're going to be really surprised if you ever go bowl nationals or start getting into PBA regionals or really just start bowling on anything but house shots. A Rubicon, for example, will out-hook a proton physics on a house shot, but if you need actual traction and dig on heavier conditions, the Rubicon's going to fall off and the proton is going to be a champ. I've got quite a bit of experience in the materials testing world, and if you want to increase consistency and keep the standard deviation as low as possible, you need to control the variables as much as possible. Perhaps more importantly, however, you need to understand the effect that certain variables have on the overall results. Beyond that, you most certainly can't write off or dismiss the effect that different components, or ingredients basically, in what you're testing have on the results. That's the whole point of testing most things in the first place. Change the makeup of the object you're testing and see what happens. Bowling has an infinite number of variables, but bowling balls have a very small number of components, so it's even more critical that you consider them all and pay attention when those components change. Now when we start looking at the burn, all of a sudden the stronger cover formula starts flexing. When there are lower volumes or plenty of friction to work with, everything will hook. But when you start talking about actual strength or traction, that's when you start seeing the separation and where the rating systems start falling apart. You absolutely can't just look at board coverage on a house shot and say this ball is stronger than this ball. It's like taking a golf club and only looking at the length it hits the ball. Sometimes you need the height or the elevation the club provides. Looking at covering boards on a house shot's the same as looking at how far the club hits the ball. That's only half of it, or not even that. Stronger stuff will start up earlier and be smoother on drier conditions because they're built to dig through a lot more oil. When not enough oil is there, they use up too much too fast and can burn up and or quit, so that's what gives the illusion that weaker balls are actually stronger than strong balls on drier conditions. It's the same with tires and racing. If you're drag racing or on a paved asphalt track, you use smooth tires that give you maximum surface area to grip the track with. If you instead use snow tires, for example, they'd get chewed up and you'd actually be sliding all over the place. However, if instead you're racing on snow or dirt, all of a sudden those racing slicks get zero traction and you're sliding all over the place, and that's when the texture and channels of snow or dirt tires offer, dig, and grip. Now, if you just took those different kinds of tires and tested them on an asphalt track, you might come away with a really different idea about their overall strength or usefulness and how they compare to each other. Now let's go back to my Proton Physics and RSTX1 reviews, where the Halo Pearl started out sharper and stronger on the drier House pattern and got slower and weaker on the heavier Nationals pattern. Both of these balls started out looking sharper on the heavier pattern and got smoother and slower on the drier pattern, but the extra volume on the heavier pattern didn't really phase them at all. This is because, once again, the Halo Pearl is built to respond to friction, where the Proton and RST are designed to create it. Once you take the friction away from weaker or sharper balls, they're going to suffer, but if they have it to work with, they're going to fly. Sometimes stronger balls will stay stronger than weaker stuff as conditions get drier, but sometimes they won't. That depends on a lot of different things, but as we can see here, these two stronger balls are actually sharper and more dynamic on the heavier volume pattern than they are on the lower volume pattern. Now, when you go onto the website and it says the ball is designed for heavy oil, that's what they mean or what they're talking about. You take a driver off the tee because you're going for length. You're trying to get the ball to go as far as you can. And once you get closer to the green, you're looking for more precision. You're trying to get the ball up and then to stop where you want it to. In between that, there's a balance in different levels of height and length. It's the same with bowling balls. Sometimes you just want them to flat out hook, and I mean get traction or dig, not cover boards. However, sometimes you want them to do just that, cover boards and be sharp and quick. Most of the time you want something in the middle, but something you absolutely cannot do is just ignore one of those while chasing the other, because you might not get what you think you're getting. There's times you can't ignore how high a golf club will hit the ball in favor of how long you want to hit it, or vice versa, and you can't just compare them in one dimension because hook and friction response for bowling balls are as different as length and height for golf clubs. It's a much easier concept to see in golf. Sometimes you want to chip the ball onto the green and let it run a bit, while sometimes you want to get it up high and drop it, and you can see visually why you might need to do one or the other. However, the concept just doesn't register for bowlers the same because the lane always looks the same regardless of the oil that's out there, and on a house shot a lot of things tend to blend together. Now you can definitely go sideways and say, hey, let's just keep it simple. Most people bowl on house shots, so if a Rubicon looks like it's out-hooking a Proton on a house shot, for all intents and purposes, it is stronger because most people are going to see, hey, the Rubicon is sharper, it covers more boards, so it's hooking more than the Proton, and that's completely fair. This avoids people's general misconceptions about ball reaction being an issue because if someone gets an insight because it's supposed to be stronger than a Rubicon UC2, only to see the insight be lazy while the UC2 flies, that's very understandably confusing. However, the issue this causes is a warped, inaccurate, and overly simplistic understanding of ball reaction that will only cause issues down the road, because instead of learning it correctly despite the learning curve in the beginning, you start reading strength as sharpness and board coverage instead of reading strength as traction, and sharpness or friction response as a totally different idea, which a lot of systems out there don't even factor in. Like, how does the Omega Crux get the same factor or adjustment or multiplier as a High Road Pearl does just because they're both Pearl? That's insane. This causes your whole foundation or understanding of ball motion to fall apart, and eventually you have to start from scratch and unlearn a bunch of things you thought were true and learn it again the right way. The UC2, for example, has the highest friction response of any ball I've ever thrown. Given enough friction, it's an absolute boomerang. However, I've had a lot of people tell me for them it's quite a bit smoother and smoother than a lot of stuff like the RSTX2, Phase 3, or UFO Alert that I have ranked lower than that on back-end strength. Now this takes us right back to the Halo Pearl differences from earlier and even to my UC2 review, which we're looking at right now. When I get it outside to the dry, it flies. It straight up stops and turns. However, when I keep it inside in the oil, all of a sudden it gets really slow and round. So if you really want to get picky, the back end rating when I hit the 5 board or outside on a house shot is an easy 10, but we're in like 5 or 6 territory if I hit 10 board. So how is any kind of system or ranking supposed to even work when a ball can do 2 different things when every single possible variable is the same? E-Trax is a medium strength cover that depends on friction, and when you have friction, stuff like it, the idle synergy, and the X2 are going to fly and look super strong, but when you take it away, all of a sudden they float and wiggle like the Halo Pearl on the heavier pattern from earlier. So where does this leave us? Pretty well the same place we started, but the more mathematic people try to make bowling, the more it falls apart. You can't punch numbers into a spreadsheet and look at the numbers on a pattern graph and create some kind of formula that spits out a result. There are 0 shortcuts to ball motion, and every time you try to create one, you end up getting off track, or you ignore critical information, or write off significant factors as outliers, or make a bunch of allowances or excuses for something that just fundamentally doesn't work. The only thing that works is that you have to learn ball reaction, not create a formula to help you avoid learning it. It's like giving a kid a calculator first versus teaching them the basics of how math actually works. You take the calculator away and they have no idea what they're doing, but the real issue is that they don't understand why it works. If you get onto different conditions or lane surfaces that all of a sudden mess with your rankings or spreadsheet, if you don't know how to read ball reaction or understand cores, cover formulas, surfaces, and how it all combines to create ball motion, you're going to be lost, confused, and upset. You could argue that that stuff might help you get going in the right direction, and it could be helpful to have the information at a glance to help you understand what you might be seeing, but as soon as you try to turn it into some kind of formula or rank or rating system, it's going to take you off the rails. If you actually understand the ball tech in the first place and develop a good eye for ball reaction, you don't need any of that stuff anyway. I started both my rating systems with good intents, but the reality is that they aren't an aid, they're a crutch, and for every person that actually uses it in the right way, there's 99 others that lean on that crutch as hard as they can and never let it go. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.